The night I first arrived in Hollowmarsh, the air reeked of salt and decay. I had taken the last bus from Greystone, winding through endless marshland until the road itself seemed to sink into the sea. The driver didn't speak to me, but I noticed his eyes in the rearview mirror, flicking nervously toward the dark horizon. When I stepped off the bus, my boots sank into wet sand. The village was eerily silent. A row of crooked houses leaned toward the shore as if listening for something. Something that came from the black waters stretching beyond the pier. An old woman stood beneath a flickering street lamp, her shawl pulled tight. "You're late," she rasped, as if she'd been expecting me. "The tide is turning." I didn't know what she meant then, but by the time I understood, it was far too late to leave Hollowmarsh. The innkeeper was a gaunt man with skin like parchment. He handed me a rusted key and warned, "Stay inside after dark." The water carries voices. That night, sleep was impossible. The air itself felt heavy, thick with the smell of brine. Around midnight I heard it, soft whispers rising from the pier. At first I thought it was the wind, but the words were too deliberate, too full of intent. I pulled aside the curtain. The tide had crept unnaturally close, lapping at the very steps of the inn. And there, standing ankle-deep in the black water, were figures, 7 of them swaying in unison, their faces turned toward the moon. The next morning I went to the only building that looked older than the rest, the village library. Its windows were clouded with salt, and the door groaned like a wounded animal. Inside, I found a single book that seemed untouched by time. The Chronicle of the Drowned God. The pages spoke of a deity beneath the waves, a being the villagers once worshipped as the Father below. In return for their devotion, the god kept the sea bountiful. But the last entry was dated 1892, warning that the god had grown hungry, and his hunger was no longer for fish. That night, I followed the whispers. They led me past the pier, past the marsh, to a cave mouth hidden by jagged rocks. Inside I found the villagers, faces pale, eyes wide, mouths chanting in a language that scraped against my sanity. In the center of the cave, the water churned violently. Something vast shifted beneath it, and then it rose. The water inside the cave was not like the sea outside. It was thicker, almost black, and it pulsed as if alive. I could hear it breathing. The villagers knelt, pressing their foreheads to the wet stone. One by one, they whispered a name I couldn't fully comprehend, syllables that twisted in my mind like eels. Something vast shifted beneath the surface, and I caught sight of it, a shape, impossibly large, with skin that gleamed like oil and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. The sheer size of it made my stomach twist. No creature should be that big, not in water this shallow. When it exhaled, the air filled with the stench of rot and brine. My knees buckled. It felt like my very thoughts were being pulled toward it, like a tide inside my skull. I stumbled back to the inn, shaking. The innkeeper was waiting for me in the common room, a single lantern flickering on the table between us. "You saw him, didn't you?" he said without looking up. I tried to deny it, but the words stuck in my throat. "They call him the Father below," the innkeeper continued. "My grandfather made a pact with him. We all did. It's the only reason Hollowmarsh still stands. But the price?" His voice cracked. "The price is blood. Outsiders, mostly." I realized then why the old woman at the bus stop had said I was late. I wasn't expected for a room. I was expected for an offering. The next evening, the storm came. The wind howled through the narrow streets, and waves battered the pier until planks snapped like bones. I stayed in my room, clutching the rusted key as if it could save me. But then I heard it again, those voices. Only this time they weren't whispers. They were a chorus, rising above the storm, chanting in that same alien tongue. And beneath their voices came another sound, something massive moving through the water, dragging itself closer to shore. The floorboards beneath me trembled. I don't know why I followed them. Maybe it was the same force that had pulled my mind toward the father below in the cave. Maybe it was just morbid curiosity. Either way, I found myself on the beach, rain stinging my face, watching as the entire village walked into the water. They moved in perfect unison, unbothered by the waves crashing against them. Some carried lanterns that burned with a sickly green flame. Others dragged something behind them, large shapes wrapped in nets. My stomach dropped when I realized they were bodies. The water accepted them without hesitation. They led me to a place I never could have imagined, an ancient stone structure rising from the sea, revealed only at the lowest tide. It was a temple, its walls covered in barnacles and carvings of strange, tentacled figures. Inside, the air was thick and humid. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow, deliberate drops, each one echoing like a heartbeat. At the far end stood an altar made of black stone, slick with something that wasn't just seawater. The villagers surrounded me. The innkeeper stepped forward, holding a knife made from a shark's tooth. "You will feed the tide," he whispered. It was then I saw her, the old woman from my arrival, standing apart from the others. Her eyes met mine, and she gave the slightest shake of her head. In one fluid motion, she cut through my bindings and shoved me toward a narrow passage at the side of the temple. "Run!" she hissed, "before the tide turns." I didn't think. I just ran. The passage twisted and narrowed until I had to crawl on hands and knees. Behind me, I could hear the splash of feet and the roar of voices. They were coming. The air grew colder, wetter, until I emerged into a hidden cove. The moonlight illuminated the water, calm for the first time in days. That's when I saw it, rising from the depths just beyond the rocks. Not all of it, never all of it, but enough to freeze my blood. The father below. He was watching me. A voice, not human, not possible, spoke directly into my mind. "Stay. Join the tide. The sea will keep you." Images flashed before me. Endless life beneath the waves, the ability to breathe water, to see the drowned cities of the deep. But then came others, visions of darkness, pressure crushing my body, my mind eroding until I became just another whisper in the tide. I don't remember screaming, but my throat burned. Somehow I made it to the rocks. I climbed until my hands bled, until the sounds of the chanting faded behind me. By the time I reached the marsh road, the storm had passed. The bus stop was empty. I walked for hours, never looking back. It's been 3 years since Hollow Marsh. I don't know if the place is still there, or if it ever was. Sometimes I dream of waves lapping at my door. Sometimes I wake with salt on my skin. And sometimes, late at night, I hear the tide whispering my name.